It's the one benefit of having kids. You got soft. You got scared. It's my first console meeting back. All right, if we can have a seat, please.
You guys ready?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So good evening, everyone. I know this is a little odd that I am calling the meeting to order, but we have neither the mayor nor the vice mayor present this evening, so...
I'm present via Zoom.
You're present via Zoom. Your voice is coming...
Sorry, I can't be there in person.
Yes, no, you are coming down from on high, and we can hear you loud and clear. But since you're not in the room, in order to run the meeting most efficiently, it will be best to have one of the three council members who's actually sitting at the dais chair the meeting. So I would, after consulting with the village manager and clerk, it would be my suggestion that one of, the three of you, or the four of you, somebody make a motion to delegate that responsibility to one of the three of Mr. Sartori, Mr. Painter, or Mr. D'Ambra for purposes of running the meeting, and I think it'll be more efficient that way. So I would, with that suggestion, hand it over to the council.
Mayor, do you want to make a motion, or I will?
I can't technically make a motion. I don't even think on this I'd be able to, but I will give input. Councilmember D'Ambra is familiar with this role, so he might be a good person to lead the meeting tonight.
Thank you for your voice on that. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Councilman Frank D'Ambra as chair for the meeting.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Then I would call for a vote. All in favor of Mr. D'Ambra chairing the meeting, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Congratulations, Mr. D'Ambra. The meeting is yours.
Spread out a little bit here.
You guys want to slide down?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Is this on? Is it on? Okay. So we're at 6:05. The meeting is officially commenced. Mary Ann, will you please call the roll?
Yes, I will. Mayor Young,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brandon, Councilmember D'Ambra,
Here.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember Sartori.
Here. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved?
Do an invocation.
Oh, yeah. Invocation, Pledge of Allegiance.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'm doing the invitation tonight. Pastor Paul, would you like to come forward and give the invocation this evening?
Heavenly Father, tonight we give you thanks for this day and for this wonderful village in which we live. Father, we thank you for the leadership that sits on the dais tonight. We pray for our mayor and vice mayor and all our attendants tonight, Lord. We give them wisdom and direction and guidance as they dialogue and discuss the business of our village. We thank you tonight, Lord, for every employee, every staff member, Father, every leader, every director of our town, every resident, Lord. We thank you for such a wonderful place that we can live and enjoy our life here, Father. I just personally am very grateful to be a part of this village and very thankful to you for that. And then, Father, we pray for those in our military this evening, Father, those men and women that could be in some very dangerous places. We ask for safety for them. We pray for our government, Lord, our country, and all these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get into the formal agenda, we have a series of presentations this evening, and it starts with a legislative update from Senator Gayle Harrell. Welcome, Gayle. Injured foot and all.
Yes, well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me today to do a bit of a legislative update. And I'm Senator Gayle Harrell. I represent District 31, and that includes Martin, a little bit of St. Lucie, kind of the southern part of St. Lucie, and the northern part of Palm Beach County. And of course, the amazing village of Tequesta is very much a part of it. And I've lived here on the Treasure Coast for 50 years and have seen Tequesta grow and change over the years. And it is just a beautiful place. And I congratulate you for keeping it that way and making sure that it's just a marvelous place to bring a family up and to live and work and enjoy our beautiful Sunshine State. This last year was a very good year for the state of Florida. The open state of Florida did very, very well. Most states struggled this last year, but as I can tell you, and if you look at the legislative update that I've passed out, our budget was amazing. The number one and truly the only responsibility we are constitutionally mandated to do is to pass a budget each and every year. And this year's budget was $117 million, just under that because of the vetoes. But the original budget as passed was $117 billion. And we had the Treasure Coast and the Palm Beach County did extremely well in the budget. We had major resources coming down to us. And this year, I had the honor and privilege of serving as chairman of the Health and Human Services Appropriations Committee, which is the largest section of the budget, representing 40% of the budget. And we had a budget of over $47 billion. We also, and this was a tremendous increase that we were able to put in, most of it going into health and human services. Of course, we had an uptick in Medicaid because of the pandemic. And we also did some major expansion on kid care, because as people are starting to come off Medicaid, with the federal requirements being changed, and those who are on it now starting to come off of it as they are reemployed, we are making sure children get the health care services that they need and have the insurance. So we did a major expansion of kid care and did a sliding scale from 200% to 300% of poverty that parents can access the kid care subsidized insurance for children. We also did a major expansion of education and education opportunities for students. And I'm delighted to say that we increased the budget. We had absolutely put it almost $1 billion new into education, and really are moving forward in making education as open and free and available to students in this state as possible, and giving choice to parents to make sure that they have the ability to have their child go to a school that really meets the individual needs of that child. I can say in the environmental arena, we did extremely well. And I have been very involved in this arena for many years, having done the original bill for Legacy Florida that put dedicated resources into comprehensive Everglades restoration. And we had major increases in that, putting over $500 million into Everglades restoration when you consider all the different things that were done. And we also did major expansion of septic to sewer conversion. We put over $100 million into the Indian River Lagoon. So environmental resources are significant, have significant increases this year, and I'm delighted that we have been able to do that. Of course, transportation, tourism, and economic development, again, because of the resources we had with the additional revenue coming into the state of Florida, we were able to do major expansions in that arena as well. As far as legislation goes, we had a very successful year. we did some major things. Again, I want to emphasize in the arena that I work in mostly, which is in education and health and human services. I can say that we really did some significant bills in making sure our students get the very best education. And one of the issues I've been involved in is making sure those students who struggle in reading especially have the opportunity to get special resources. And we are also changing the curriculum that we use to teach our children to read, making sure that this is science-based reading education. I've done a lot of work in the area of dyslexia, and we want to make sure our kids get the resources to get the appropriate methodology used to teach them. And we've also taken the same approach in mathematics for our younger students, K through 5, and are going to put special resources into helping students who struggle in math. As far as higher education goes, I am delighted that we are now going to have a dental school in our area. We got $30 million to start the construction of a dental school at FAU in Boca. It's something we've worked on for several years, and we're also putting additional resources into starting the administration and getting that going as we build the facility. It will be the second dental school in the state of Florida. We have one at the University of Florida, and I have to say, go Gators.
Go Gators.
But we're delighted that we're now going to have one here in southern Florida, the south part of Florida, and especially in Palm Beach County. I just am so delighted. And the emphasis, of course, will be to expand dental services, especially to our underserved population. We also did a bill that has been somewhat controversial, so I want to go ahead and delve right into it, and it's called our Affordable Housing Bill, the Live Local Bill. And this is a bill that I think is going to assist especially those in our workforce who struggle with the high cost of living and housing in particular, to make more available housing and through a variety of mechanisms in allowing private enterprise to partner with government in order to make affordable housing more available. We use the Florida Finance Corporation to do it. We already have the institution there, and we want to make the either low cost or no interest partial loans available for first-time home buyers, and also we want to have rents that are reasonable in various apartment facilities. So I think this is a step very much forward. We also have the ability for counties to do actually property tax exemptions or lower property tax for individuals in this arena. So I think it's a variety of options. One of the areas is that dealing with the zoning changes in density and height limitations, and I do want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding. We are not preempting other than to the maximum density that you allow in your comprehensive plan, in your particular unit, governmental unit, your municipality. So whatever the max is, you will be able to do, a developer will be able to come in and do affordable housing to the max of that within 1 mile of wherever you are, only within your jurisdiction. The same way with density. So I know in Martin County we have a 4-story limit, so that will be consistent. There will only be a 4-story limit. And that's only for affordable housing where there's that preemption. So there's been some concern about that, and I wanted to make sure that that was very clear on the preemption side of it. But also we did some major legislation on in the healthcare arena, as I said, in the expansion of kid care. That is going to be significant for families. We originally, kid care only went to 200% of poverty. Now we're really raising that to 300% of poverty, where families will be able to get reduced health insurance for their children. in elections, we wanted to make sure that we had significant safeguards to make sure everyone has confidence in the electoral process in Florida. And we started this way back in 2000. I remember the election of 2000 where Florida determined the election of the president by 536 votes. And, when we had hanging chads and pregnant chads and recount after recount, and there hasn't been a kid named Chad in the state of Florida since because, of the issues we went through then. And the legislature has been on a march over the years. Every single election, we find something that has to be corrected. And we have been diligent in doing that. And this year, we continued that in really making sure that your information is private, that signatures are verified, and that we have a whole election process that you can have confidence in. So the only last thing I would mention on the budget issue is tax holidays. We are really providing significant tax reduction and tax holidays for individuals. The back-to-school tax holiday just closed on Sunday. School started on Thursday. So I think we wanted to make sure we had two different sections of the back-to-school holiday, at the beginning of the summer and then right before school started. We also have hurricane tax holidays, as we've done most in the past, but now we have 2 weeks of tax holidays for that. And of course, during the summer, we have our summer tax entertainment holiday, where you can go to all kinds of sporting events and different kinds of entertainment, things of that sort, and not pay sales tax on it. And we also continue to reduce our business tax, our rental tax on rental property. So we're on a march to eventually eliminate that, again, to help small businesses in particular. So I think it was a very successful year this year, and we are on the march. Florida continues to do well. Our anticipated revenues look very good as we're watching things that are coming in, and we will be continuing to make sure that Florida stays the free, open state that it is, and that we put our constituents first, and we use every single dollar as carefully and wisely as possible. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you might have. And if I can't give you the answer, I'll be happy to get it for you.
Gayle, thank you. Molly, would you like to start?
Thank you, Councilmember D'Ambra. Nothing specific, just Senator Harrell, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight, and thank you for your time coming to talk to us tonight and give us an update. And we look forward to working with you this upcoming session as well.
Thank you very much. And I want to say that I'm very pleased that we were able to bring home a lot of dollars. And if you have very specific budget issues and budget requests that you want to make as a village council, please let us know as soon as possible. We're going to start our new process for getting ready for session. It's early session this year, so we will start in September in starting to process budget requests. So if you have specific things, let us know, and we are most happy to work with you. There's a whole process that you have to do, as I'm sure you're familiar with. But we're very happy to help in anything that you need.
Rick?
Senator Harrell, thank you for being here this evening, and thank you for your support of what we here locally in the Village of Tequesta call the Dover Ditch. It's part of the Loxahatchee River initiative, and thank you for that. Very important for us to get that. That's right where that waterway dumps into the Loxahatchee River, and it's clogged. So thank you very much. That was very high on our priority, so thank you for assisting with that, along with Representative Snyder. And just generally, have followed you through the legislature through most of your career, and I just want to say thank you for your stance on mental health. You've always been a champion for mental health, and some people, it's getting more and more prevalent and prominent to discuss, but you've always been a champion of mental health and a lot of our juvenile offender programs as well. So thank you very much for your historical stance on all that. So.
Thank you. And to continue on that topic, I think we're finally getting to the point where the public is becoming more and more aware of the need for the resources to be put into mental health. And my hope is that we can eliminate the stigma that has been existed in this arena. I do a lot of work in that area, and I really feel that we need to make sure that we have treatment options out there, and that we make sure that we have the availability of services. And when you look at the co-occurrence between substance abuse and mental health issues, it is so significant. And we have a tremendous number of people dying from fentanyl overdose. And so many of those people wind up in the substance abuse arena because of mental health issues. So they go hand in hand, and you have to look at them together and make sure that we are tackling the whole issue from the substance abuse side as well as the mental health side. And if you look at the back of the, I didn't want to take too much time because I know you have a busy meeting, but if you look at the back of the update, you'll see the resources that we are putting this year into mental health and substance abuse. And it is significant. Especially, we did get the opioid settlement dollars. They are finally starting to come through. And I want to let you know that Palm Beach County is one of those counties that is getting direct dollars. They will not be part of the state money. The smaller counties, medium-sized counties, will be determined on a county-by-county basis and also programmatic basis. But larger counties, such as Palm Beach County, will be getting direct dollars. So my suggestion would be become part of that. Become a part of the task force. I believe there's a meeting going to be in the next week or two where they're putting together a task force for Palm Beach County to start looking at how to use those resources. So I want to make sure that we get the money out for treatment and also for early identification. We've put huge resources into our schools in the mental health arena, but that is for identification, not necessarily for treatment. So we want to make sure that we have treatment options out there as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't have anything specific, but I wanted to thank you as well, Senator Harrell, for being here representing our village. And it's interesting, the mental health and substance abuse. I don't know if anybody here has seen there's a documentary now called American Pain. It is amazing to see how far we've come in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, that's some scary stuff to look back at. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure we all do, and just thank you for looking out for us.
Well, thank you very much. It's a big issue, and we need to keep it in the front of the mind. So
Absolutely.
that, and a documentary such as that is a very good tool to help people realize the significance of the problem and also reduce the stigma that's out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very much so.
I think, the legislature, as you've outlined, has done some really, really good work. You mentioned before, you kind of opened the door here for a discussion about things specific that we need. And I know I talked to you a couple of years ago about this, and I've talked with Representative Snyder, and I know Molly has followed up with you as well. But, this circumstances of Tequesta Park, which is very unique because it's technically part of Jonathan Dixon, but it's in Martin County, but we lease it, but it's open to everybody. And that, as people have heard me refer to it, as a wasting asset. It's not operating at the potential that it has. I think Tequesta taxpayers are one that we do maintain it. We do invest money in it. We've invested some money from a capital perspective to address some issues, but to really get that park to where it needs to be, again, given the nature of it and the intersection of multiple entities, as you know, we're looking hopefully for some state money to
Yes.
assist us. We haven't had any success in the last 2 years. I'm hoping that maybe this year we can change that so we can make some significant progress on Tequesta Park. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know this is something near and dear to a lot of people, is the issue of homeowners insurance.
Yes.
We've got different companies withdrawing from the state. We know Citizens is a very high-priced alternative. I know there's been some work done to try and rectify that situation. I also know that, while yes, we have hurricane exposure and the impact of that is significant. If you go across the country, though, in other areas, tornadoes, wildfires, other things, they have other elements, obviously, that are significant cost impacts as well. So I'm just curious. I know there's been efforts made, but I also know the homeowners insurance rates are, in many cases, people are facing a doubling of what they were paying. So I'm just curious as to what the legislature and the governor has in mind over this next session to see if there can be some help and some relief in that particular area.
This is probably the number one issue, pocketbook issue for most people. When you look at what insurance, homeowners insurance has done, and there are many causes behind it. Certainly hurricanes is number one in our exposure, and Ian created a huge issue. The state's already spent over $2 billion on Ian. And it will have an impact, there's no doubt about that. But what we have done, one of the major impacts over the years that kind of escalated along the way is the fraud that has gone on in the system. And over the last 2 sessions, and with 2 special sessions as well, we have made major attempts to attack the frauds part of that. We also are we've made changes on building codes, which are starting to take effect as well. So it's a process. We will not see major reductions probably for another year, and Ian will have an effect. But I can tell you what we've done in the fraud arena is very significant in saying, I don't know if you've seen the ads. I know my neighbor had somebody come to their house, I guess about 7 months ago, saying that it was after one of these big thunderstorms like we just had, and said, your roof really needs to be replaced. You've got a leak there, and this storm just created a real problem for you. And he said, you let me do the inspection, and I'll make sure that your insurance company pays for it, a new roof for you. This has been happening again and again and again. That led to major increases. We have really put some very significant restrictions on that, and I think we'll see that impact within the next year. We also have really looked at what causes so many of the lawsuits, and once you have a lawsuit, that increases the cost of insurance, the whole process of going through the legal system. So we've made some major changes in how that whole system, tort reform, and how that whole system works. I think that will take another year to see shake out. We also said, Citizens has grown tremendously. That is the insurer of last resort that basically is subsidized by the state to a degree. And in fact, my insurance went up 40%. So I wound up in Citizens. So believe me, I'm in the trenches on this fight. And we really said, what's really driving some of this, the lawsuits and things of that sort as well, and what's pushing people and driving rates. We wanted to make sure that homeowners' claims were paid as quickly as possible. And that seems to be one of the things. So we've put some restrictions on, some requirements on insurance companies having to pay in an appropriate manner, and increasing the fines when they do not. We also said we want to look very carefully at Citizens, make sure we're running that system as carefully as possible. So I think this year we'll be looking for additional changes. I do not sit on the insurance committee, so I'm not familiar with what those changes, what they're thinking about now. But I will certainly keep you in the loop as I start to hear what additional things. And one thing I want to say is, if you have specific ideas, and if the audience does, if your constituents do, please come talk to me. My door is always open. I'm looking for ideas, I am looking for ideas that we can, give to our insurance committee, that they say, let's investigate this, let's look and see the potential for change here, change there, so that we can really start to address this and continue to address it. The problem's not going away.
Yeah, it's not an easy issue, because you have situations where people have filed claims and believe they're legitimate, and they go through hell and high water to get it paid. And then, as you said, you have the fraudulent claims, and the insurance companies, I know, looking at this, there's always that yin and yang. Do I fight it? Or do I just pay it? And a lot of times it's cheaper to pay it, but once you get a reputation for paying it, then you open the doors for people.
More fraud.
They believe you're willing for more fraud. And so I know it's not an easy issue to tackle. But I know there's been some progress made. but to your words, there needs to be more, so, and you said that's one of the highest legislative priorities, so that's,
That is,
Fantastic.
that is a number one priority, I can tell you. And it's across Florida. You know, it's totally across Florida. We've seen what happened with Ian. We've seen, you know, we've had storms come through the center of the state who thought they were kind of immune and caused major damage. Ian did cause major damage in the central part of the state as it came through. So this is an ongoing issue. I think building codes are very important. And the more we make sure our building codes are up to speed and that we now have a statewide building code that's very strong, but the enforcement of that is up to you.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are the ones who do the inspections.
no, and I agree, and that's an area, I mean, if you've got buildings that are built properly and are resilient, that's obviously gonna cut down on the costs
Yes.
when events do occur, and that is part of the solution, so.
Yes.
Listen, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all your good work. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, and I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you all, and I'm sorry Miss Molly isn't here. She called me last night to say she was so sorry she couldn't be here, and I appreciate her very much, and I appreciate all of you. And as I said, my door is always open. If you have specific issues, if you have specific things that you want to see changed, and if you have good ideas as to what we need to do, please let me know. I'm here to represent you and all the people of the wonderful village of Tequesta.
And you opened an office in Jupiter, correct?
And I have an office in Jupiter, so I'm just around the corner. You come see me.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Jeremy, did we put that out? The fact that she and Representative Snyder opened an office in Jupiter, we made that public on our website.
I don't think so, but we'll do that.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Okay, next up is Ms. Dorothy Jack. She is the appraiser for Palm Beach County, and welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to see you all. Nice to see you virtually, Mayor. And always a pleasure to be here in Tequesta at the very north end of our county. I tell people quite often when I travel that I serve a county that has a 40-mile coastline. And so I always enjoy being at the extremes. In fact, I'm going to be in Boca Raton just next week. So it's a great county to be a representative for, albeit I do spend some time on the road. Today, I'm just going to quickly go through a couple slides I put together about values specifically here in Tequesta. Just to give you a frame of reference, we of course distributed our July 1 numbers and are now in the process of preparing to mail our proposed tax notices. I know you've set your preliminary millage, which will be on those notices, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the notice process when we get there. But the preliminary numbers for 2023, very positive for Tequesta at $3.2 billion with a taxable value. I'll talk about how those differ in a moment. Net new construction, one of the highest I know Tequesta's seen in some time. Of course, a lot of that was presented by the Sea Glass condominium, which came onto the roll this year at $145 million. Percentage change in taxable value, I think it was one of the highest, wasn't it? When I had the managers meeting earlier this year, your manager was there, and I think he was doing a little hoo-hoo. He was pretty excited. Anyway, total parcel count, 3,400, and the tangible accounts, of course, are business accounts. So furniture, fixtures, and equipment that is valued for tax purposes and taxed at the same amount that all real property is as well. The next slide here just shows a little bit of a breakdown of market value and then taxable value, and I like to show this because it shows you a distinction of where the larger value is coming in, but actually taxable is who pays the taxes. So you can see that the residential properties, meaning single-family residential, separate from condominium on the right, residential properties, although they bring in a lot of your value because of caps and the homestead exemption, they shrink slightly in who pays the taxes itself. Condominiums go up probably partially because some of them are seasonal, and the most interesting one is of course the yellow, which is commercial. So this shows this sort of shift that we see all across Palm Beach County, certainly, and all across Florida, where residential property, both single family and condominium that are homesteaded, end up paying a little less of the tax burden of the whole system, as it were. The next slide gives you a little breakdown even further of how we get from that $3.2 billion down to the 1.87 taxable amount. First, of course, Save Our Homes. That is where people not just are homesteaded, but are staying in their homes, which I think is one of the signatures of a great community like this, is you have a lot of people who stay in their homes for long times, and so with time their value increases, but how much they're saving because of the Save Our Homes cap is sort of controlling that value increase for them in what they're paying. The non-homesteaded assessment cap, which is at 10%, has actually started to really take off, especially in the larger Palm Beach County areas and our downtowns and so forth, as values have gone up more than 10% for many people over the last 2 years. No ag class, a little bit of pollution control, that's usually businesses that are putting in systems to help manage what they're pushing out into the atmosphere. Think of a restaurant. Even they have to have that sort of stuff. And then working waterfronts is a marina of any sort. The 64%, so we get down to assessed value, then we start subtracting the exemptions, and you can see at the very bottom all the different exemptions, including that Tequesta is actually only one of, I think, 12 cities that have a senior exemption, a low-income senior exemption, so kudos to you for doing that, because it is helpful to those who qualify for it. The income limitation on that is around $35,000 gross annual income, so it's pretty low, and it's wonderful that there is that benefit there. It actually adds another about $500 worth of savings to their tax bills. We renew, county-wide, we renew about 15,000 of those a year. And then, of course, tangible personal property, a small business, all businesses get a $25,000 exemption, so that's rather like a homestead for a tangible account. So if you are a hair salon or a small store of some sort, maybe a small cafe, you probably don't even pay any tangible tax. Tangible tax is usually just the bigger, more valuable business property. Think Publix or a department store will be paying that tangible tax. Government, quite normal. Institutional is, of course, churches and any not-for-profit organizations, and then some other minor exemptions, getting you down to 58% of your market value being taxable. 58% is quite normal for a community such as Tequesta. You would see the similar kind of number in Lake Clark Shores, Haverhill, sort of bedroom communities that are primarily residential, but still, it doesn't worry me till it gets below 50%, because then you're really taking down the number through exemptions. So just a little bit of history about market and taxable value. I like this slide, especially now that we've had 2 years of this pretty amazing market, just showing you that top line going up so drastically just in 22 and 23. What we're seeing right, and then of course the taxable value going up a little bit, but not quite as much as that. When we had the run-up in the market in 07, 08, 09, that top line actually almost went vertical. It was much sharper and much steeper, so it doesn't worry us yet that line is doing what it's doing. I will point out that the market, although the market we like to call it slowed down, meaning the time that transactions are taking is longer. I had the statistics from the realtors from May of this year. In May of 22, things were on the market for 25 days on average. Now they're on the market about 70 days. So, but the distinction between that and what's actually happening is values aren't declining. The value is about the same as it was in May last year. So, you're looking at a median sale price in Tequesta. Now, this is just for Tequesta. This year at 1.1 million. Median sale price in May of 22 was 1.063 million. So, I mean, it's just kind of holding right in that same area. Just properties are sitting sitting. It's not even sitting, 70 days isn't sitting, but it's just on the market just that touch longer. The other thing I'll point out to you is that I mentioned sea glass earlier. We have noted the 2 sales of the 2 properties further south from Sea Glass that I believe were both bought by the Sea Glass developers, one for $40 million and one for $100 million. And those were, if you, again, think were land sales. So we will be reviewing the value on those properties even before any development begins next year based on those sales. So you'll probably see another reasonably good increase next year simply because of adjusting those land sales. And since the property transacted, we are able to raise them more than 10%, which if it had been, I mean, it wouldn't be in this situation, but if it had been the same owner, we're restricted by that 10% cap on non-homestead property. But in this case, I think it will also bring in some reasonably good value to Tequesta for '24, as those sales will be contemplated for the '24 roll. So just a final note, I mentioned the proposed tax notice. A week from tomorrow, we will be mailing this notice. This is what it looks like. I like to share with the public here. Please open your mail. End of next week, we mail 700,000 of these every year. Of course, they're individually produced for every property owner. They're front and back. Front side is all the taxes, those 3 columns. Back side is both market value and any benefits or exemptions that we have granted on that property. We always tell people just to check that everything's there. They've received everything they're expecting. A market value, very important. If they disagree with it, there's a window to file a petition with the Value Adjustment Board that ends on September 12th. So it closes, that's done. So it's important to know that it's coming and going if you're interested in petitioning your value. So our office is gearing up for that over the next week, and we'll be ready. Of course, our North County branch, which is in the Government Center on PGA Boulevard, has both exemption staff, but also our appraisers who work Tequesta. So if any of your residents are ever interested in coming in and talking to the people who actually do the valuation for the community, it's right there on PGA. There's no need to have to come downtown. And it's not a terribly busy office. We're not the tax collector. We're the property appraiser. It's a quiet office. So we always welcome people to come in and talk to us. I will also just finally mention my director of valuation, Steve Egan, has been a long time resident here in Tequesta and is on your planning and zoning board. Yeah, and he just said to say greetings to you all tonight. So, and thank you. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have for me.
Dorothy, thank you very much. Molly, have you got any questions or thoughts?
No, just again, Dorothy, I'm sorry to miss you in person tonight. In light of us, everyone being in budget season, of course, right now, it's very helpful to get this update. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Great job, your whole office.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise, thank you for being here.
And I just have one quick question. You mentioned the run-up that happened in '07, '08, '09. Of course, then we had the big downturn. We have a budget meeting next week. Would it be possible to get that same slide that you did, but with data starting like in 2004 or 5 through 2023?
Absolutely, yes.
That would be much appreciated.
Yes, because we in fact do have that slide countywide, and it won't take us long to just plug Tequesta into it, so that you see it in more detail.
All right.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. The meeting's Monday night.
Okay, we'll
so-
get in touch with Dino on my tax roll coordinator. I'll get it organized.
All
I'll
right.
send him a text.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Again, thank you very, very much for being here this evening.
thank you.
Very much appreciated.
Yes, enjoyed being here with you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have a Professional Partnership Award presentation to Jupiter Inlet Colony. Chief True.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager, Village Attorney, Village Clerk. The Professional Partnership Award for 2023, we are going to present it to Jupiter Inlet Colony. This is an award for outstanding service to the Village of Tequesta, Tequesta Fire Rescue, and to the citizens of Tequesta. They were nominated for this award primarily for the work during the bridge closure. When the Cato Bridge was closed, It was actually their police chief calling me and saying, hey, we know the bridge is closing. Do you need a place to stay? And obviously, we do. So we were able to staff up an engine and a rescue over there at no cost to us, for the entire weekend. This occurred on 2 separate occasions. We worked flawlessly with Jupiter and the Colony, as we always do. So that was why they were nominated. As we were thinking about the award, though, it occurred to me that this is really a long time coming. Jupiter Inlet Colony has always been our partner. If I go back to 1993, and I do, some of you maybe have seen that on social media, one of the things that was very apparent to me was we had a partner, another city, that was willing to stand up and say, Tequesta Fire Rescue ought to exist, Tequesta Fire Rescue ought to be a fire rescue agency in this area and protect the citizens of both Tequesta and Jupiter and the Colony. So it really starts in 1993, and it doesn't end there. All of our special events that we do, Jupiter and the Colony will, gladly help us with staffing. They've handled chili cook-offs and some of these, the run for the pies. They support us whenever asked. Oftentimes calling us ahead of time, saying, do you need help? During hurricane response, we coordinate with them. Sometimes they stay in our place, but they're here. They're uniformed members that can go out and help during an emergency. COVID-19, I still describe that as a 4-letter word because it was a year and a half of my life I just won't get back. Vaccination sites, test sites, we needed extra officers for that. Again, Jupiter and the Colony, working with our own Tequesta Police Department, provided that security so that we could do that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention all these things. So when I think of Jupiter and the Colony, it's not simply about a bridge closure. They've actually helped us with that on more than one occasion. It's about everything that they've done, really, for 30 years. So for that, the 2023 Professional Partnership Award is going to go to Jupiter and the Colony. And with that, I'd like to invite members of Jupiter and the Colony. I think we have Chip Block, the mayor, and I know we have Chief Schultz, the police chief. We're going to go to the front here. I'd also like to invite council, the manager, the attorney to join us for the picture, and my Ladder 85 crew. A little picture here, and we'll get Where's Molly? We need some beauty at this group. We'll just get the rest of it around us. And we have an extra
Bounce it out a little bit. Make it worse.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and I'd like to also thank Chief Zadina for serving on our police chief selection committee, which he did well, and Jeremy Allen for all his assistance all the time. We are codependents. We have a wonderful relationship with Tequesta, and it's very important to us. Tequesta is our downtown, so we shop and we dine and roam the streets of Tequesta. We were glad to help out with the bridge. We're glad to help out with anything that Tequesta needs, and we know that the opposite is also true. On Tuesday night, speaking of the chief, or Tuesday rather, speaking of the chief selection committee, Chief Dan Kerr, formerly of Jupiter, will be sworn in as our new police chief in Jupiter and the Colony. Chief Schultz who's been my friend for many years, has done a wonderful job as acting chief. And Chief Kerr is coming in to take over and fill John Pruitt's big shoes. So thank you all very much, and Molly, we miss you. Thank you, and shout out to Mayor Abby in case she's watching. My buddy. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I don't know, folks, if we could really expand on any more than the mayor has said. This partnership is critical, as you all well know, for the best interests of both communities. And we really do seamlessly, in my belief, operate in that manner. You'll see us quite often here in the area with our fellow members of the police department. And we're privileged to be here. And we really are quite taken in by this relationship. So again, thank you. It's great to see all of them. And thank you, my friends.
Thank you.
Sincerely.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, moving on. Can I have a motion on the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, next is communications from citizens. So if you're speaking on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda, this is your opportunity to come forward and address the council and all the folks who may be watching. Do we have any cards or anything tonight, Mary Ann?
We have agenda item number 14, but nothing else.
Okay, nothing on that. Anybody like to come forward on any topic? All right, thank you. All right, moving on, we'll now move to the standing reports. I'm sorry, comments from the village council. Molly, you're up at the Florida League of Cities meeting, correct?
Yeah, I'm up in Orlando at the Florida League of Cities meeting, representing our wonderful village very well. So again, sorry not to be there, but I'm happy I'm able to join via Zoom. And thank you, Frank, for stepping in tonight.
Oh, no problem. Anything interesting you would like to comment on in terms of what's going on up there at this point, or you want to cover?
No, today's really the first day all in, just going to sessions, getting some good information, and I know when I get back, the next council meeting, I'll definitely will fill everyone in and any, items that really caught interest that I think would be relevant to share with everyone.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
All right, great. Rick?
Nothing at this time.
Mine's quick, but I just want to recognize police and fire on two different things. So fire, August 1st, we got to attend our push-in ceremony, which I've never been to a push-in ceremony. I think there was a few of us, Rick was there, but it was very cool. Obviously very cool to see the new engine and everybody out. And it was a little toasty, but other than that, it was great. It was very cool. And then police, so at the last council meeting, there was a quick reference to, there was a young man, and I believe he was in unincorporated Palm Beach County that was, I guess maybe bullied is the right word, or not treated very nice. And I didn't know the full story of it until after council, but after hearing the full story and knowing that this young man was made chief for the day, it was very cool to hear. And I have no doubt that you improved that young man's life. And we never want to see or hear of anything like that happening in our village or near our village. But what you guys did for that young man, I think he'll remember for the rest of his life. So I immediately after we got that meeting, I had to know what happened, and it was very cool. So thank you.
And I just want to add, again, we have the program that police and fire contribute to in terms of the Safe Stop for the kids, which we run at the beginning of the school year every year, and they do a great job making sure all the children stay safe. So both to our police and our fire, thank you very much for your work in that area. Okay, next we have the standing reports. First up is the village attorney.
Just two things. First, glad to be back. And second, I don't want to open a can of worms here, but
Do it.
The new legislation regarding Form 6 was not mentioned by Senator Harrell, but if any of you guys have any questions about that, please feel free to give me a call offline. I'm happy to have a one-on-one discussion. I'll handle what's required of you individually, or however the council wants to handle that, but I want to make sure you're all aware of what's coming and what will be required of you come January 1st. So,
Thank you, Councilman.
and that'll be my report.
Thank you.
Just for those of you who may not know, there is a reporting requirement if you're an elected officer in the state. That reporting requirement requires you to disclose certain information about income, sources of income, that kind of thing. The original report was very broad-based, so you had some specific information, but it didn't get down to the nitty-gritty detail of every element. They have changed the law at the state level, and now locally elected officials have to abide by the same reporting requirements that state officials do. So that's this new Form 6, which is going to require a much more detailed disclosure by all of us in terms of our financial statements, in essence. And that would be public information for everybody to see, for existing council members and anybody who runs for election. They will also have to abide by that new Form 6 as well. I just wanted to add that, just in case people weren't aware of what that was. Okay, next up is Village Manager, Jeremy.
There's a couple of project related. I think Doug and his staff, Public Works team, they have put lights on Tequesta Bridge. I know they were out on the boat taking fixtures down and rewiring it. I appreciate what they do. And then probably piggybacking Doug again is Marjorie and Doug and the work they're doing on El Portal. We're going to start that project. All the equipment and materials are ordered, so we have a pre-construction meeting next week. And then you guys have seen the sidewalk project on Tequesta Drive progressing. We're expecting another 10 to 14 days and be wrapping that up. So the contractor has done a good job. Obviously, Doug and his team managing that. Little update, EAC had a meeting yesterday. They worked on their priorities initiatives. One of the things they're volunteering is going to National Public Lands Day, September 23rd at the BLM. So they're going to provide a booth and represent the village out there at that event. I know there'll be newspaper and the TV stations out there. So kudos for the environmental committee for volunteering to do that. Budget workshop Monday the 14th. Public vulnerability assessment meeting next
I know I wasn't there to see it in person, but I did see photos, so again, thank you to everyone. And I also wanted to acknowledge, I believe last week was Chief Troop's 30 years of service to the village, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. I actually outdate the fire department by a couple months, so.
So I just want to congratulate you on that and thank you for your service to the village. Like I said, you've seen it all. You've seen many councils go through the village, and it's great to have you here. So thank you so much for your service.
I appreciate that, Mayor, thank you.
I wasn't going to bring that up, Molly, because I figured he didn't want anybody talking about his age, so. I did have one question for you, though. The badge pinning ceremony, what time is that taking place?
That'll be at 9 a.m.
9 a.m., okay.
The 9/11 ceremony is usually at 8:30. I believe we have the same schedule as last year.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we are now moving on to the regular agenda.
Utilities.
Oh, Marjorie, I'm sorry. God, how could I forget you? I have questions for you, too.
Uh-oh, I mean, great.
Sorry.
Marjorie Craig, Utilities Director. And so the manager already mentioned that El Portal, I got word today from Doug that the structures have come in, so we plan to mobilize out there next week. Very excited. I can't tell you how excited we are to get started. And we've received the dewatering permit, as you know. The vulnerability assessment, also the manager mentioned that we have a public meeting on Wednesday night, 6 o'clock. I hope everybody can attend. And our Jones Edmonds will be here too. They'll be virtual and in person, some of them, to answer any questions too. So we'll be showing where we are with the vulnerability assessment, and then also soliciting input from the public. Dover Ditch, as you know, the funds got approved. Pretty excited about that. And Chenmore's already now, as soon as they got the shotgun start for the final design and permitting. So you can read about the water treatment plant projects. At one point we'll do something a little bit more in depth. And then for Country Club Drive South, we're still waiting for Loxahatchee to finish with their lining, their pipeline. We've got a draft letter to go out to the public. Beach Road Phase 2, I have a target date here of September. It really looks like it's going to be possibly December 1st because we have to do a request for inclusion to DEP. There are a lot of different steps that you must go through for a state revolving loan, and that's one of them. So our engineering intern has now completed her summer, and she's back with the band. And I wish she was here with our band because we really enjoyed having her here. I've got a picture of the water tank being repaired by Crom. And the next thing you will see on the agenda will be when we bring to you something for the cleaning and painting, because they'll look a lot better when we get them cleaned and painted. As far as the dashboard, you can see that we did add the intern, worked with Dennis, and we added all of the, we disaggregated the accounts that we have into the residential, commercial, multifamily, and government. And so you can see what we have as far as receivables outstanding. So we will be bringing back the agenda item that closes out some of that. And you can see we're tracking along. We've got a little bit more revenue from last year, which is to be expected with a little rate increase. So let me also talk about the cross-connection control. We are developing a 2-year plan to get that back into a higher level of compliance. It's really a challenge. And in talking to utilities across the state, it's a challenge for all of the utilities, because do you turn people's water off if they're not in compliance? How do you enforce that? Right now, we don't have a fine. We don't have something that is, people do it as a part of, we send a letter, we request them to get their backflow preventer tested. Where I've worked, we've actually had a separate charge for that to have an outside company come and perform that testing. I'm not prepared to bring something forward after having the rate increase that we have to do that right now. So we're going to continue to work really hard to get people into compliance. So with that, do you have any questions?
Molly?
I know we've talked about this before. The cross connection it's actually gone down and continuing to not get better or reach the goal. Can you give us an update on that?
Yes, and that's what I was just mentioning is that we.
My apologies. It's a little hard to hear too on the Zoom.
Okay. Yes. So and Jeremy and I have talked about that and talked about the challenges of getting that compliance up. It is a challenge for utilities across the state. It's not just Tequesta, but he's challenged us. Here, let's come up with a 2-year plan to get that compliance higher. So we're identifying all of the options that we have, and we're going to be working on that hard. I don't like it either. I like trends, positive
Right
trends.
direction.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
for
not the right.
repeating that. Sorry, I missed it.
Nope, no problem. Anytime.
Rick?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last week, Marjorie, come back. I had 2 questions for you. The last time you mentioned, which is, the 180 days past due, and I agree with you. Turning off water is not necessarily the humane thing to do. You talked about fines. What about putting a lien on the homestead or the house so that that property can't be transferred until that bill is paid?
So in the case of most of these receivables, people have moved away, we can't get a hold of them, we've sent them to the collection agency. It'd be almost impossible to get.
But they moved away because they sold the home, or they didn't abandon it, right?
There's probably a mix, but, and I don't know the details of each particular one. I can get a little bit more for that.
So the residential, you don't know if to what extent that is homeowners versus renters versus.
No, I don't. And some utilities will only put the water account. It's probably mostly rent. My guess, my experience, my years of experience, it's renters typically. There are some utilities that will not allow an account in a renter's name. They will only put it in the homeowner's name. Let me tell you that causes a lot of other problems too. So it's a challenge that everyone faces actually. But we could do that. There is one home that we've talked with Mr. Davis about putting a lien on a particular home that was foreclosed on and has quite a large outstanding bill. So that's something we're preparing to look at maybe going to a magistrate to deal with that.
All right, so no easy solutions here. You kind of have to, like in this last example, if it's been foreclosed, I'm assuming, does the bank already have ownership?
The bank has ownership.
So we're saying to the bank, you've got to pay this off before you can transfer title.
That's what we would like to do.
So you need to, what I hear you really saying is you have to look at each situation and then try to be creative. But if there's something we can do, there's something, again, I don't want government to overburden people, and I don't want us to inject ourselves into people's lives unnecessarily, but there's something, as you think this through, you talked to Keith and others, that we could do here at the podium in terms of regulation, legislation. Let us know, and we'll take a look at it, because the problem with it is, of course, is the people who don't pay, then that falls back on everybody who does.
It does.
And
You're absolutely right.
That's what I do not like.
We don't like that at all. So if you look at the outstanding, the 188, if I'm looking at this correctly, the 180 days and more, there's about, I don't know, $52,000. And when you compare that to the revenue, the monthly revenue, then you can see you know, kind of your percentage there, and that's, I mean, it still impacts people. It still impacts all of us that pay our bills.
Normally, we like the trend lines going up from left to right, but this one is the one we don't want going up left to right, so.
Exactly, you're exactly right.
And my other question, and I don't know, Doug, you might want to weigh in on this too, but, you know, the corner of Beach Road and US 1, I mean, they went down, they did the work in preparation for the bridge closure, but we still have flooding issues down there. I mean, tonight it was pretty bad, people driving through that intersection. Are they eventually planning to address that beyond what they've already, the work they've already done down there? You know, the corner where the Walgreens is and that area, US 1 and Bridge Road, or Beach Road, I mean? Yeah.
And that would be either DOT or Jupiter or Palm Beach County, but
I was
it's
gonna-
not
yeah, I
our
was gonna say that's not
jurisdiction, but we can try to
the
get an
village, but we could
update.
find out
Okay. Yeah,
whether it's what they're planning on.
It's still a very poorly draining intersection when you get rains like we had today. So, all right, thank you
Yeah,
very
every
much.
time it rains like this, I'm like, where's my my four-wheel drive so I can go look at where the
It helps to have
problems
some
are.
extra ground clearance.
Oh, yes, exactly. I know, I don't want to drown my car.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Marjorie.
Thank
Okay, now we're moving on to the regular agenda, and we're starting with old business, and we have an ordinance, second reading. Keith, will you do us the honors?
This is ordinance 0823, an ordinance of the Village Council of the Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 78 zoning, Section 78-4 definitions to revise the definition of the term veterinary office, providing that each and every other section, subsection, Chapter 78 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify an effective date for other purposes.
Okay. And as an ordinance, this is considered a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience like to address this? Okay. Okay. Any comments from the council?
None by me.
I have none.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 12. This is also a second reading of an ordinance of the council. Keith?
This is ordinance 0423, ordinance of the Village Council, Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 10 Animals, Article 3 Sea Turtle Protection by repealing this article in its entirety, adopting a new Article 3 Sea Turtle Protection with findings of fact, definitions, regulations, and enforcement provisions that are consistent with State of Florida Model Sea Turtle Protection Ordinance and the Palm Beach County Sea Turtle Protection Ordinance, providing that each and every other section, subsection of Chapter 10 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify effective date and for other purposes.
Okay, again, this is a public hearing. Any comments from our citizens? Okay. Jose's with us. Any comments from, conversation from the council?
I have none.
Molly?
No.
Okay, very good. Can
Good job,
I have a
Jose.
motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Moving on to new business, the first item is consideration of a modification in the plot for the Mastriani Family Headquarters. Lance, you have the floor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and acting chair. The application in front of you is a replat, which was originally approved in January of 2022. During the construction and building process, the FPL agency required that the applicants revise their plat. This has been reviewed by our consultant surveying company, Legacy Surveying, as well as our legal counsel has reviewed it. The application, our applicant is here, Mr. Gentile, just to provide a presentation.
Good evening, George. How are
Good
you this
evening,
evening?
Mr. Acting Chair and council members and Mayor in the sky. Thank you for having us here. I have a presentation. This is, and I don't know if I have, oh, here it is. Sorry. There we go. Basically, as Lance indicated, FP&L made a change and a modification in their easement while we were under construction. And so we needed to revise the plat. And if I could show you, this is the current plat on the left side and the new plat, and you'll see the easement which is on the left-hand side of the right-hand photograph. And those are the changes in the plat right there, and that was dictated by FPL. They seem to have a lot of ability to make you change to their convenience, so anyway, that's really it, and we're asking the village to accept the replat for the project.
Okay. Any questions, any discussion from the council on this item?
I have none.
None for me.
Any comments from the audience? All right, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, George.
Thank you all.
Thanks, George.
The next item up is again, Lance, this is yours.
It's me again. The application in front of you is a special exception use.
Before we dive into this, Mr. DeAmber, this is a special exception application, so this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. I'll need to do the swearing and ex parte disclosures. With your permission, I can do that now.
Absolutely.
Is anybody else testifying other than Lance? If you'll stand, raise your right hand. Do each of you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that your testimony to the village council will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You can have a seat. Coming back to the council, including Mayor Young, who's remote. Have any of you had any ex parte discussions, site visits, consultations with staff or other experts regarding this item? If you have those activities will need to be disclosed on the record at this time.
Not with this item, but I have toured the property with our village manager, but none of this was discussed.
Okay.
Yeah, I've toured the property personally, but
Okay.
nothing was discussed, obviously.
Yeah, I have none.
Mayor?
I toured the property a while back, so not relative to this.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for that. Then we can proceed with this item then.
Okay. So as you may recall, the village underwent a extensive public participation process, which was our Parks Master Plan. It actually examined all the open spaces in the village as well as the parks. One of the main ones that was examined was Remembrance Park, which is off of Seabrook Road. Through that process, we had different interview processes or design open houses and workshops, as well as kiosks at the different events that were held in the village. And through that process, they finally come up, Kimberly Horn has designed a actual plan for Remembrance Park. And I have Mr. Tom Hargreaves here for his presentation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, distinguished council members. Good to be here this evening. My name is Tom Hargreaves. I'm a landscape architect with Kimberly Horn, here on behalf of Jonathan Haig tonight, who's a project manager. He could not be here for a family reason, but here to talk with you guys today about Remembrance Park. I know I have a clicker here somewhere, so I'll go ahead and get started. As Lance mentioned, last year the council approved the approved master plan on June 9th. This was working in conjunction with Kimberly Horn and the staff to produce the said approved park master plan. Over the course of the past year, we have now developed our implementation site plan, which you see before here on the second slide. This consists of primarily an entrance feature and asphalt parking lot along the road entrance. Also a permeable paver parking spaces with 6 spaces, 1 ADA accessible space. A concrete pathway connection to the first of 2 pavilions at the eastern side and entrance of the park. In addition to that, there is a crushed gravel aggregate walkway encompassing most of the central and western side of the site. In the center portion, there is an educational center with a butterfly garden. You can see that along the western and sort of central western side of the site. Close to that is also our second pavilion. There is a landscape buffer on both the northwest and east side of the site, and that's the general scope of the site plan. So, next slide. These images kind of just encompass the general site features and aesthetic the park is looking to achieve. It matches some other amenities and site furnished features. You'll find some other community parks around the area. I believe Constitution Park also holds some of these same site furnishing elements. There's a good image on the bottom right-hand side of the crushed aggregate walkway that serves the primary portion of the walking trail of the park, as well as some dog waste areas and a conceptual rendering of the Remembrance Park sign in the north east side of the page. This is a rendering image of the two gazebos that are going in, one on the eastern side and then one on the western side. I believe there's also a standing gazebo on another park that matches a similar aesthetic as well. So it seems like you guys have maybe seen this before. Next slide. This is a blow-up of the permeable paver parking lot. So the entrance drive and wraparound drive is a true asphalt drive, but we did have the opportunity to implement permeable pavers for the parking areas for some stormwater and drainage considerations, as well as some water quality. You can kind of see the slate paver color you'll see with those permeable paver parking spaces in the bottom right-hand corner. As for some of the fencing and gates, the perimeter will consist mostly of the 6-foot black vinyl chain link fence. There will be a clusia hedge running around the entirety of the perimeter, so you really won't see the chain link fence. It will be mostly screened, when the plants reach a little more maturation. And then the 3-prong vinyl fence, the white coated vinyl fence along the front of the site. And then that's just the gate for the vehicular entrance. Next slide. So as for the landscape material we've implemented, mostly native, drought tolerant. You can see in general mix of pines, live oaks, orange geigers, sable palms, a good mix and variety throughout the property. And our shrub material as well, firebush, holly, Fakahatchee grass, the heavy hitters, so to speak, in the native landscape community. And as Lance mentioned, this is a permitted special exemption use. The first line reads, the proposed use is permitted special exemption use in compliance with section 78179D. This property would fall as a neighborhood and community public recreational facility. And number 2, the use is so designated, located, and proposed to be operated so that the public health, safety, and welfare and morals will be protected. Currently, the subject property is a vacant site, and the proposed passive neighborhood park will be an amenity that offers walkways, gazebos, new landscaping, a butterfly garden, and a few other features. Third, the use will not cause substantial injury to the value of other properties in the neighborhood where it is to be located. Next slide. The use will be compatible with the adjoining development and the proposed character of the district where it will be located. Number 5, the adequate landscaping and screening is provided as required in this chapter. And 6, adequate off-street parking and loading is provided, and ingress and egress is so designed as to cause minimum interference with traffic on abutting streets. With that, I will open to any questions or others.
It's okay with my fellow council members. I know we have somebody, we had a card for somebody who wanted to speak to this item, so I'd like to hear from the public first and then have the council discuss after we've had public input. Marcia, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Marcia Nielsen, 94 Beechwood Trail. In October of 2011, Council Member Jim Humphrey proposed this park to be named Remembrance Park to honor those who have or are serving their country. Expanding on Jim's vision, in September of 2022, the village manager requested that Pat Watkins and I propose plaques honoring legacy persons who contributed to the founding and growth of the village. Our proposal, which we presented to the manager as a PowerPoint presentation, was to set up stations at various points in the park. And these were the stations we proposed. A short history of the village, including names of the first village council members. A short history of the fire services, including a list of the fire chiefs. A short history of police, including the list of fire chiefs. A short history of the ambulance service. A plaque honoring Charles Seabrook, the last lighthouse keeper, whose house is adjacent to the property. And a flagpole with remembrance gardening surrounding it. In addition, we proposed a reading nook under a tarp incorporating the little library donated by the realtors and a plaque honoring the first branch of the Palm Beach County Library System, which was established right here in Tequesta. Now that we are moving forward in developing this park, I would ask the council to consider incorporating these stations into the park. Furthermore, I would request that the council consider expanding on the remembrance theme by giving residents the opportunity to name a tree, a branch, a brick after a loved one. There are benches at Constitution Park, so designed, so I assume there is some existing framework for these donations. However, I have never seen any information regarding how residents might be involved or any encouragement for public participation. Since we have a limited time window, I would suggest that such a program be initiated or expanded to encourage residents' involvement in the development of the park by honoring their loved one, and I would be most honored to be part of that effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Harold?
Harrell Taylor, 13 Chapel Court. On the very north end of that property, there are two, I think, power poles. One with a transformer, the other one has wires from the transformer to the pole. Obviously, FPL either has a right-of-way there now or did in the past. If we consider taking those two ugly poles down, they serve no purpose for anything. They're not connected to anything except themselves. Why leave them? I mean, why ruin the look of the park with a couple of poles? Thank you.
You're welcome. It's something we can certainly look into. Okay, comments from the council. Molly, would you like to start?
Sure, and just so you guys know, I can hear council clearly, but the people at the podium, it cuts in and out occasionally. But I have no comments on the agenda item and the two items that citizens just brought to us. I do think it was on the plan to have some kind of history or educational plaques, and then also with the power pole issue, I think those are things we could probably address during the site plan approval. I don't think it's something to discuss, and Keith can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's something to discuss or consider adding for the special use, but if the rest of the council would be in favor of these, maybe could be things addressed at site plan application time.
Yeah, tonight, the special exception approval process, council's job is to apply the application to the special exception criteria. I would agree with the mayor's suggestion that those matters are more appropriately dealt with at site planning, and it will come back to you for that if the use is approved.
I agree. Rick?
This is, as council knows, and if the residents are not aware, Remembrance Park and the development of this, as Marcia had said, has been a long time coming. And this is one of our number 1 or 2, top 3 definite council priorities. So I'm excited that we're moving forward with it. I agree with what the mayor and our legal counsel just said. I'm in favor of what we're seeing tonight, but the history of the park and where it came from and where Tequesta comes from is a very important. I'd like to see that at site plan approval to make sure that we remember that and see how we incorporate all those factors and issues.
Yeah.
And Tom, thank you for coming here tonight.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who presented on it. I agree. I mean, especially given the name of the park, I think it makes absolute sense to incorporate a lot of Tequesta's history in there. Maybe we can even get a plaque to really confuse people on the Jaega tribe, if you really want to mess with people's history lesson. But I think it's a great idea. I think the application otherwise meets all the special exception criteria, as far as I can tell. But I would love to see that incorporated in the future, for sure.
I do have a question. We are going to have a budget meeting next week to talk about the allocation of monies. We've talked about a phased approach to this particular park. Were we to decide that we want to move forward more rapidly, the 1.2 million, that's for the, is that not only for the, I'll call it the Seabrook site, but also the adjacent site?
Just phase 1.
Or is it just Seabrook?
Just phase 1, the Seabrook, the Seabrook side of that. I mean, I think, obviously, as we all know, it's a budget discussion. As we started this process, I was a little hesitant. We've had this I guess, done or kind of wrapped up for the last couple months, but until council made that choice to move forward in one phase or another, you know, I know that's still, I guess, up for discussion come Monday. But I feel like this is the process. Even if we do a phase of it, we need to go through the site plan and special use process. And so, you know, obviously if we didn't do it, you know, we got 1 year to do it, or so we're going down the right path. I think I answered your question, but if not, I mean, I'd be more than happy to elaborate more.
I wanted to make sure that when we were talking about, because we talked about a phased approach to the park, and obviously the connection to the land on Riverside, we've labeled that as phase 2. So I just wanted to make sure there was clarity that the $1.2 million that we're talking about is for the Seabrook component.
That's right.
Solely, and if we accelerate it, then we'll complete this whole phase, and then we'll move at a later date to the other adjacent property.
Yep.
Okay. That was my question. All right.
Two quick questions, and this is strictly curiosity, and I love that we're going with the crushed gravel versus a concrete or asphalt. But what, just out of curiosity, what's the longevity of a surface like that? What can you expect? I know everything varies, but
Well, certainly depends on maintenance.
Yeah.
So a high level of maintenance, you're looking at anywhere from 15 to 20 years I've seen.
Okay.
Not me personally as a young landscape architect, but I do know if cared for properly, you can expect a good shelf life.
Okay.
But from a maintenance side, it's something that does require upkeep, and it will affect the longevity if you don't.
Okay, great, thank you.
Patrick, just remind me of a second question I had.
Sure.
We all know asphalt radiates a lot of heat. I don't know, and Doug, you may be able to talk to the difference in cost, but it seems to me that concrete might be a better surface. We're not talking about a huge area, we're talking about parking for 6. Concrete might be a better material to use rather than asphalt, especially given the current weather circumstances we're in. And again, I don't know what the pricing impact of that would be, but I wouldn't think it'd be too significant. But
Can
just
I
a thought.
interject something on that just real
Sure.
quick? And you know, I don't know that when we sat down to do this that we really weighed the cost so much as what we decided in the Parks Master Plan was to try to keep this as passive and natural looking. And so as we set up, that was our #1 material that we asked for. So I don't know that we got too much into, well, the concrete's better. You know, this was part of the Parks Master Plan. So, I mean, if you guys want us to change that, obviously we can, but we didn't weigh cost in that scenario, and I don't think it's gonna be a significant difference. I don't know. We didn't really grab Doug or Greg and say, hey, can you give me a cost difference? That was #1 to try to keep that, because that's what the public wanted on that.
Well,
so.
I think the durability of concrete, and I also think, again, as we were redoing the sidewalks, people would comment about how if you were walking on that asphalt, you could just feel that heat radiating off that asphalt. So that's why I brought it up, is maybe that's a better material than using asphalt for the drive. Any other comments or thoughts?
None.
Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
If I can, just thank Greg, obviously, for being here tonight, but he's done a lion's share of having input into this project. Lance, Nielsen, their team, I think we're finally getting there. And then Marcia and Pat for their eagerness to help with, the placing the signs. And I put the slide back up because that's the second from the left. That'll be where some of those historical markers are. They did give me a presentation. It's very formal. It's very, very good. So I appreciate them just taking the time to do that. So we have a lot of people working to help make this park happen. So it's a good thing coming.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 15. This is consideration of an approval for a professional lobbying services contract. Keith?
I get
I can take
the
it.
privilege of this. So what the council has before it is a proposed agreement with P5 Group LLC, Ken Pruitt as the proposed lobbyist for the village in this upcoming year. The village manager went through a procurement process that conformed with the village's procurement policies, interviewed a number of potential candidates, and is recommended to the council Mr. Pruitt. This agreement memorializes the proposed arrangement with Mr. Pruitt, and its manager may have more information to give you than that, but that's essentially the item that's before you at this time.
Charlie, did you want to add anything at this point?
I just had a couple of notes, but, basically dating back to the strategic planning, we talked about, the Tequesta Park and the funding, how to tackle that. This was, an item that was addressed that, changing what we're doing with our lobbyists. As you guys know, Jack Corey and their firm has been with the village for a long time. We utilized it for the last couple of years to try to get appropriation to Tequesta Park, and so part of the conversation was moving to a different firm. So, I personally interviewed these firms. They have sent proposal. We ranked them based on, expertise and experience, reputation, credibility, their relationship, strategy and approach, their communication skills, resources and team, geographic reach, transparency, compliance, and just customization of what they're going to do for us, and the cost and ROI. So, there were several criteria that I looked at, and, while we didn't have to go by low bid, I think their price was in with the other, sandwiched in the middle of the other two firms that I looked at. Gray Robinson was one, and the Pittman Law Firm was the other firm. Those were the three firms that I interviewed and got proposals from, and so with that, my recommendation is P5, Ken Pruitt, to be our lobbyist for this upcoming year. As you guys have in your packet, it's a one-year agreement. We can revisit that as we move forward if we, whatever services, if we change our priorities and we feel like there's another firm that might be better for us based on our priority change, but based on what we have going. Ken Pruitt was the appropriations chair when he was in there. He was a Senate president. I felt like the conversation I had, he could navigate that process for us. So.
Okay. Very good, thank you. Comments from the council, Molly?
Yeah, just two quick questions. I know our current lobbyist is full-time in Tallahassee, and P5 has an office in Tallahassee. They are not full-time there. As it relates to, especially when legislation's in session, are they up there full-time during session? Are they going to be able to, I don't know for sure, but I could assume I might be up there again this session. Are they there to set up meetings and assist us through that process?
Yes, ma'am. They do have an office in Tallahassee. When the session starts, they do have a staff member that is there full-time to meet our needs, is what they've expressed to me. So they do have an office there, and they plan to be there during session.
And then my second question is, how would we, and this might be more for Keith to answer, how is a conflict of interest addressed? Because I know, like, for example, Waste Management is one of their clients. If there was a conflict, how is that addressed? Do they decide who they represent? Because I'm assuming maybe they can't represent both of us. How does that process work?
I think we'd have to take that on a case-by-case basis, as if the village has a particular matter that we want to have lobbied, we would need to look at that on a case-by-case basis and make sure that there aren't, or that those issues are navigated correctly. But I think you truly have to do that on a issue-by-issue basis.
Okay, thank you. No additional questions.
Okay. Rick?
Yes, we have a current relationship of which we pay, I believe it's, Jeremy, $24,000 or $25,000?
When we say current, it's no longer current. We have canceled that. But it was, so it was $24,000 the last we'll say 3 years. Man, I've been here a while, maybe even going back 4 years. When I first got here, it went down to 24 because of our budget issues. But prior to that, it was 36,000.
Okay, so in the most recent, budget cycle was 24,000, and this contract is for 60,000. So it's an increase. It's an increase of that $36,000 is 0.2% of our operating budget. And if you look at the full dollar amount, not just the increase, the full dollar amount of 60,000 is 0.34% of our proposed general operating budget. So it's a small dollar amount. It's big when people look at it individually like this. But this is an investment in our village. We've all made investments in our life. Some are financial, some are professional, some have worked out, and some haven't. And I think this is an investment because this is consistent, and I've been saying this since I've got on this council. We have strategic priorities as a council. The number one was our police and fire, and we're going to continue discussing that. Tied for 2 and 3 was the development of Remembrance Park and appropriations for Tequesta Park. Senator Harrell, while she was here earlier today, and Representative Snyder, put forth that appropriation request, we didn't have somebody to help really carry it across the finish line. And this is an investment in the time that we have spent to develop Tequesta Park. We maintain it currently. There's a big, heavy lift to transform it to where it could really be an amazing destination. So in addition to, so I look at the cost of it. That increase is the $60,000 comes out to about $6 a resident, about $10 a resident. That increase of $36,000 over our current budget is about $6 a resident, and I think that's a good investment if we look at it that way on a per resident. There's more than just communication when somebody is in Tallahassee, and I'm happy to hear that Mr. Pruitt and his team will be there. But communication we can get through the Florida League of Cities and people that we rely upon. But there's the advocacy to have a boot on the ground there every single day. And in this firm, this gentleman was the former president of the Senate. Go back to 1995 when he has made a tremendous impact on the legislation that he did. I think that supports not only us as a council, but also our residents and property ownership rights. There are 160 people in the Florida legislature, 120 in the House and 40 in the Senate. And our delegation alone, our 13-member delegation, represents Palm Beach County. It dips into Broward County. It goes up to Martin County. As you heard Senator Harrell say tonight, up into her constituency, takes her into St. Lucie County. So there's no less than 1.8 million people that they're listening to. And 1.8 million people, for some of the things that we have looked for and we count on, we need somebody touching the ability to touch all 160 of those legislators. And that's somebody that's on the ground that has the experience. And I just think that this is a good investment, investment of our resources and our stewardship to not only meet our priorities, but also to give us a representation that perhaps we haven't had in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did receive, I think it was at least 2 resident concerns about this agenda item. And, I just want those folks to know that we hear you. I think largely those were related to the cost. And I'm glad that the history of that cost and our previous lobbyist service, there is some history as to why their cost was significantly lower, and largely it's because we had some budget issues and they agreed to, I believe, operate at a lower cost and never came back for more. Plus, everything's just got more expensive. So when you look at the two, it is there's a gap there. The decimal point statistics were very helpful for me because I certainly didn't do that, but that was helpful. But generally, just want the residents to know that we hear you on that. But obviously, you'll be hard pressed to find any municipality anywhere that doesn't have some kind of lobbying services, and there's a reason for that. And you have to have your interests advanced, and we're not in Tallahassee. We can be as loud as we want, but we need somebody, as Councilmember Sartori stated, we need somebody boots on the ground up there who's really advancing our interests. And the hope, obviously, is that what we pay any lobbyist, what they bring back as a benefit for our village far exceeds the $60,000, whether that's for Tequesta Park or whatever it might be. But a good lobbyist has the ability to do that. I've seen that firsthand with some of the lobbyists I work with outside of council. And some people don't like lobbyists. I get it, but it's kind of I shouldn't say this, but it's sort of a necessary evil, a cost of doing business. You need them. We're not up there. So I support this. And obviously I trust our village manager and our staff. So I know they've vetted not just Mr. Pruitt and his team, but there was others we looked at. So fully trust them. And I think this is just something we need to do.
Yeah. Pick up on your points without repeating them. Palm Beach County has, 37, 38 municipalities? 39. And you've got Palm Beach County, and you've got counties all over the state, and you've got municipalities all over the state. And they all want to have their voices heard. And when you're trying to get to the right people in Tallahassee for that voice to be heard, as you just said, we're not there. We need somebody who's effective. I will say, not to cast any water, but Senator Harrell, Representative Snyder, we started the process with them for Tequesta Park, over 2 years ago. Our biggest advocate was actually Senator Bobby Powell, who's no longer representing us. But obviously the Democrats are very much in the minority. I think Senator Powell does have some ability to cross the aisle, but I think the prior firm had real strength with the minority. They didn't necessarily have the strength with the majority, and I think at this point, as you both have said, we need someone who has strength with the majority and hopefully then can bridge the gap with the minority as well. And what I would like to see in this agreement, because it is a one-year agreement, is some type of objectives that we would be looking for them to try and achieve and accomplish. I realize not everything's in their control, but I think we should lay out some performance expectations so that when we get to the end of the year, we can review those and say, okay, did they meet, did they do the job? Did they achieve or are substantially on our way to achieving the things that we're asking them to do that we think are important? So when that agreement is constructed, I'd like to, I think that's fair to them to say, hey, here's what we expect from you. Not just you're out there lobbying for us, but here are the things we're focusing on. Here's the things we're targeting. This is what we're looking for you to try and help us achieve, and kind of lay out those expectations, almost like a job, like if you have a job performance evaluation, so that at the end of the year we can come back and say, okay, how'd they do?
And it might be helpful, and maybe if you have any ideas, but for the sake of this agreement, we can add by motion, an annual performance, keep it pretty broad, and then that'll give me an opportunity just to develop a scorecard that I can bring back to you at the end of the year. But we can put a little note in there that says annually will be reviewed for performance measures or something like that, and then I can work with, I can put something together, obviously make sure that they're okay with the scorecard, but that way it doesn't hold up the agreement, because the legislation starts in January. I think some of the delegation stuff starts in September, so we are working toward a clock here. So
I'm with you on that. Do we have any comments?
I just something to add to that real quick. I mean,
Yes.
There are some. There is kind of a scope of services in there. It's high level. It's not on specific items, but I think, we never know what's going to pop up every session as well. So I don't think we want to be too specific and kind of pigeonhole the process. But I mean, I'm comfortable with the scope of services that's listed there. So I think that it kind of covers what all our needs could potentially be, during session. Did we do an annual review with our current lobbyists?
we did not.
We didn't do a formal review. But I think it would be appropriate, and I do think, while I agree with you that the scope kind of outlines broadly, I do think we want to identify very specific areas that that we expect them to focus on, such as Tequesta Park. And I realize that they're not voting for or against any legislation, but when they sit down with us, we want to know, okay, what have you done to try and advance this? There may be things beyond their control, but the things that are within their control, we want to make sure they follow through, effectively and as efficiently as they could to try and deliver and achieve the things that we've laid out as Rick said, with respect to our strategic objectives. So again, I agree with the manager. We can create a scorecard that can be an addendum to this motion, and give him the flexibility to work on that as we go forward.
Yep.
Any other thoughts? Okay, who'd like to make that motion?
I'll, so moved.
Second.
Do I need to incorporate the second part to it?
Yeah.
Do we need to take public comment first?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, no. All right, go ahead, Patrick.
So the motion is to approve the agreement for professional lobbying services with the P5 Group LLC, with the understanding that we will also prepare some type of report card or some type of metrics that we can measure the performance, whether that's internal to the agreement or external to the agreement is to be determined later. But
Well, it should be part of the ultimate agreement, but it could be an amendment.
yeah, I guess, yeah, absolutely, sure.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, very good. All right, moving on to item 16. This is the approval of health, dental, and life insurance renewals. Ms. Reed, the podium is yours.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Merlene Reed, Director, HR and Risk Management. I want to just give a little background. The committee, we have a benefits committee, and it's comprised of 3 union reps and 3 management reps. And I just want to say thank you to them. They have, we have a really good team here working together. The reps from the IAFF, Jason Fawcett, the CWA, Bo Chesney, and PBA rep, Ray Kurkowski. On the management side, we have the finance director, Jeff Snyder, and the IT director, Brad Gumberg, and of course myself, in addition to our village manager and our brokers represented tonight by Christian Bergstrom and Rami. This year, we decided to go out again to shop the market. We did have some concerns having moved from Florida Blue to United Healthcare. And we had only Florida Blue and our current carrier, which we get through Florida Municipal Trust. United Healthcare responded. Florida Blue, who we were kind of hoping to go back to if possible, but they submitted a 41% increase for a matching plan, while United Healthcare, which I must say, there are about 90% of the staff that's fine with it, so that's a good number. And they were gracious, they worked very well with us as well, and they gave a 6% increase, a total of about $114,000 to retain the current plan. So I guess the choice was made for us right there. The committee is recommending, of course, that the health insurance be renewed with United Healthcare. There are no changes to our group life insurance and the employee assistance program. Dental increased by 5%, and that came out to just under $4,000. So we're looking at a total overall increase. If you're looking at the total, it's even though we got a 6.3% increase with the health insurance, the total overall is 6.1%, or $118,000 over the current year. So, of course, I'm recommending tonight that we return with United Healthcare and the standard for our dental and life insurance. And of course, the EAP with new directions. If anyone has any questions, I'm here, and we do have the brokers here.
Okay, thank you, Merlene. Council comments. Molly?
No comment.
Rick?
No, just thank you to the staff and for just your diligence on this. I mean, it's such an important asset to our employees, so thank you for going out there and just turning over every rock, so thank you.
Okay.
Yep, no comment, but thank you.
Yeah, given the state of the insurance market, I said, given the state of the insurance market these days, to come in with only a 6% increase is yeoman's work. My only question is, you mentioned that there's been a couple of issues with United Healthcare. Are these things that we brought to the United Healthcare's attention? Are these things that they have rectified or corrected?
We did, and we are still working with them. It was mainly prescription, especially for persons who were on the more expensive prescriptions. Okay. They try, maybe that's how they end up being so cost effective, because they do manage, they do manage their health insurance, the plan very well.
Well,
So-
I do know that, for example, I know people who are diabetic who actually could benefit from Ozempic or some of the other drugs. A lot of the insurance companies are hesitating to cover them because they are very, very expensive and they're getting overprescribed for the non-diabetic population. So I know there's real challenges there.
It is, and they genuinely have been working with us. They asked me to send them the names of the individual at their consent if they wanted to. So 1 or 2 persons did say they want to escalate it. It was also the first year we were dealing with them, so there were some little problems there, but I find them they're compassionate, which is good.
Right. so you feel good about retaining them, aside from the cost standpoint?
Well,
No, but
yes,
aside from
right.
cost, you feel good about retaining them?
Yes, we do. There are persons who are hurting, but,
All right, sounds good. Any public comment? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next one is going to be a little more challenging. The renewal of property and casualty. Marlene, this is yours
Yep.
as well.
Yep. Okay. So, yeah, I have some backup here.
You got reinforcements.
Oh, you can, yeah. Okay, we anticipated a very challenging renewal year, and based on that, we had a workshop on July 13th to start letting everyone know that we understand that it's going to be not so good a year. And of course, it came to pass. So we are looking at an increase of 135%, and that's due mainly to the catastrophic events of the previous year. And you will see, we made sure to give you the renewal of everything here. So we showed you the current. Normally we just show you the current and the renewal, but we wanted to show you the effort that went into this thing. So if you look at the middle column, which was the renewal, and then you look at the renewal alternative that we have there, we started out, that was our best effort to get the numbers down. If you look at the liability limits for property, for example, that was $31,645,847, and the renewal was looking at $36,159,700, and we got that liability limit down to $28,459,800 by getting an accurate appraisal done, as well as looking, the brokers made some really good suggestions that we look at certain things that were over 100,000, and do we really need to be insuring them? For example, in the skate park and so on. So we got it down to the 28,459, and that still came out with an increase over the premium of 184,088. That went up to 432,277. But of course, the worst case scenario was 552,698. All right, looking at our workers' compensation, we have payroll estimates increasing this year by just over $1 million over the expiring policy. And it's attributable to our experience modification rating of 1.07, although we're trending in the right direction. The previous year it was 1.13, we're down to 1.07, and we're hoping to take that down even further. We're also looking at annual increases that were driven by the prevailing CPI. We all know what we went through, CPI getting up to 9% and so on, and these are memorialized in union agreements as well. And thirdly, we're looking at the cost associated with adding 5 new positions, 4 full-time and 1 part-time. The renewal evaluation numbers shows a renewal premium of just under $1 million, inclusive of the broker's fee, and in addition, I'm asking for $10,000 required to cover deductible payments. Historically, we tend to have 2 deductible payments for liability purposes each year, and that's $5,000. Our deductible is $5,000, and that's why I'm asking for $10,000, taking us to $1,009,903. Of course, I have to tell you that we continue to retain our 7% credit for actively maintaining our safety program, and our which breaks out into 2% for that, and our drug-free workplace policy, which is another 5%. So we have consistently maintained that credit. And Rami wants to say.
I have nothing to add. I'm just here for questions because I anticipate them.
Okay. So questions, we're open for questions now.
What, Molly, I'm sorry, I'm going to start with you.
Yep, no questions.
Okay. Rick?
No.
No. Patrick?
No, and I really appreciate all the hard work you guys put into this. I know it's not easy to drive that number down right now, so I appreciate the efforts.
So I have one question. Obviously, we've increased our operating reserves. We do have some reserves set aside for emergency situations. When you look at deductibles, there's always that balancing act between how much do I save if I raise it, and at what point in time have I saved enough money that the higher deductible makes sense? So like, for example, if we were to take, on property, if we went to $250,000 as a deductible, does it make a meaningful difference in the premium, or are we talking, pennies, basically?
So in terms of the property, at least with FMIT, the highest retention that I think I've seen on the property is 100. I don't even believe that they write a retention higher than that, because most of your assets are going to fall well under that. I mean, you do have obviously City Hall, the community park or recreation center building, but a lot of them do fall, somewhere around this level. And it was the intention to look at those items that were previously scheduled that had premium assigned to them that were under this limit. Now, this is the all other perils deductible, so that's fire, lightning, physical damage to the building, regardless of what happens to occur to it. The named storm deductible, there were some additional options to inflate that. FMIT did provide 2 additional tiers, one at 7.5% and one at 10%, but the savings are nominal. It's not worth it for the exposure that you're going to have for the total insured value that you have there. So,
Now, I know when we talked about this last time, we talked about trying to get more information out of them as to their claims experience.
I have it.
Oh,
I did get it. I actually got it in a text today. So I did confirm with them that their total asset value is about $500 million. That's where the fund operates. They have about $200 million in reserves. In terms of their losses, I actually did get some updated numbers from them. So Hurricane Ian was about $150 million in losses, so that was a little bit higher than what I shared when we were at that workshop at 100. So obviously there are still claims that are being settled, some that are probably still yet to be filed. And then prior to that, what year was Michael? 2018? I'm not sure, maybe 2019. They had an additional $120 million in losses in that. I mean, FMIT obviously participates with a lot of member cities throughout the state, so their reserves were depleted, so that's kind of part of why they need to get back to a reserve level that's obviously sustainable, in addition to maintaining. And I will say, I mean, the pricing on the Village and the modeling that they use, especially because you're so close to the coast, that does affect things, of course. But you're certainly not the most at jeopardy this year in terms of the property insurance renewal. Even at the renewal level, it was about a 200%. We have some that are just astronomical in that sense. And it does have a lot to do with, your total insured value. The Village was on a specified value contract, and they removed that option this year. And the standard market is not even very competitive this year either.
So what are their annual premiums?
I'm sorry?
What are their annual premiums? How much do they actually take in from all their customers?
So their fund is at about $500 million. So if they've got $200 million in reserves, they're looking at establishing $300 million in funding.
Okay. So I guess my question is, I'm not looking at the reserve or the asset side. This year, the premiums that they're charging, okay, when you total it all up amongst all their customer base.
Oh, well, they can't give me that.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is because you were saying that, the insured losses went from 100 to 150 million. That's a 50% increase in insured losses, right? But the premium we're getting hit with is, if you look at the property piece of this, is obviously quite a bit more than that. So I'm just wondering where the disconnect's occurring.
Well, and it's not just FMIT. I mean, it is every other trust that is out there, including the standard market. The standard market right now, at least indications that we've gotten for the few, they're at over 100%. So this is just kind of where we're at. I mean, Milliman just put out a study with the insurance institutes, and they're looking at 100+% increases on the package, including all lines, for the next couple of years. So this is just... It's a result, and we talked about this last time, it's a result of reinsurance, it's a result of everything that's happened, not just here in Florida, but everywhere else in the world. I mean, we just had fires in Canada also, so I'm sure that that's going to impact things again next year. So it really is kind of a conundrum of us having more severe weather more frequently, and the losses of those, events are exceeding $1 billion, especially when they're catastrophic, so.
Yeah, if you look at the things other than property, the increase.
They're stable.
They're stable. They're
Absolutely.
They're reasonable.
Yep.
The property component, I'm sure their actuaries, they will put that in its own silo. And if you've got a 50% increase in insured loss, I just don't know why you're looking at over 150% increase in the property component for premiums.
Right, and I
That's-
think we
That's
just-
where I'm struggling.
Yeah, and I think we discussed this at the workshop as well. You know, typically the rating bases that the trusts have used have been historically lower than what you would see in the standard market. I mean, within the Tri-County area, those rating bases are close to, $2, and we're not there. So, yeah, it's just a matter of trying to, sustain the trust, because I do believe, and I think we probably all believe that there's probably going to be another big storm. If it's not this year, thank goodness for us, but it will happen again, and we're going to be experiencing $100+ million in losses. And I think it's just an opportunity to make sure that they're able to pay those losses for all of their members, just like any other trust or carrier has to do.
But I don't want to belabor this, but
No, I hear you.
I'm still not.
I hear you.
Things don't add up in my mind, and having been in this business, all on the investment side for so many years.
Yeah.
To me, there's still a disconnect here. I understand the need to replenish reserves. I get all that.
Yeah.
But
Well, and it is true. I mean, I tried to get the modeling data from them. There's a wide range in the modeling right now. And so I think they're being conservative.
I would say so. All right, thank you both very much. Any other comments? Thoughts? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. All in
Wait,
favor?
did you take public comment?
I did ask for public comment, I think, earlier.
You did, sorry. Okay. Sorry.
That's
Like
okay.
managing back here.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to number 18. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the Village Council. Mr. Davis.
This is ordinance 1023, an ordinance of the Village Council, Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 1 in general, creating an entirely new Section 14-7 entitled Vacant Lot Maintenance to provide minimum standards including erosion control and sodding for vacant lots throughout the village, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 14 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing conflicts cause severability clause authority to codify effective date and for other purposes.
Okay, and as an ordinance, this is considered a public hearing. Do I have any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. It's now open for council discussion. Molly?
Yeah, I think this was added at the Planning and Zoning Board's direction. So on, it's C, under Section 14-7C, it says unless building construction remains in active status. Can you define that a little bit more? Because is active status if the permit's active, or if they're actively doing construction on site? What exactly does that mean?
The active status is when the permit is active.
Okay, and how long can our permits be active for?
The permit is good for 6 months. Once they pass an inspection, the permit automatic extend for another 6 months. So they have to have
we
a
could
pass.
have potentially demolition and an active permit that could sit for 6 months without any construction happening. Is that correct?
It's possible, yes.
Okay, and then Section D, thank you for adding that. I think that may have been from some of my workshop comments.
Yes,
Do you think the way this is worded, this addresses kind of making sure they contain water drainage on site? I know, noting the having to maintain erosion and sediment control, which a lot of that can be via water, but also, wind, dust and stuff. So I just want to make sure, do you think that captures, any potential water drainage issues that with water draining off site?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right, that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Rick?
No, I just think it's a good ordinance to have in place and in favor of it.
Patrick?
No, I got nothing.
Okay. I love the fact we're doing this.
Yeah.
This is something that was long overdue. Going back to Molly's question about the renewal process, if they've started actively building something and they call for an inspection and you go out and inspect it, it isn't like it's just 6 months and then another 6 months. It could be 6 months, 6 months, 6 months.
It is very possible that the Florida Building Code allow, or it's the law basically, that once you pass an inspection, that permit is automatically extended for 180 days from the date they pass the inspection. And there's nothing we can do about that. That's the state law.
So, for example, with the reserve, where they've started construction on 2 of the buildings, with no foreseeable date as to when they're going to continue building the other buildings at this point.
Well, we have some update on that. They're expecting the completion date for all the buildings this December 2024. That's the latest update that I have, but anything could change.
Okay. Is there any way to not, again, within reason, not have a situation where we have somebody undertake something and it becomes a 3, 4, 5 year? Are you saying the state law preempts us? And as long as they're doing something.
Unless kids have something that I don't know, but once you pass an inspection, that permit is automatically extended 180 days from the pass inspection.
That's statutory, that's the Florida Building Code, that 6-month period.
Yeah.
Okay. So with respect to the land that is not yet being built upon, are we allowed to segment that from the land that is being actively built upon to ensure that the proper erosion controls and maintenance is being done on that land that is yet to be touched?
Good. So once, if say for example, if someone applied for a demo permit, this ordinance will apply to that. So they have to meet all the requirements for that. So the process will work from there. So then once they have an active permit, of course, they can start with the foundation and they get past an inspection, the permit is extended for 6 months from there. So I cannot force them to do the verticals into 6 months. So.
Yeah, well, you know what my concern is. My concern is you've got all this vacant land over there, and when it rains and the wind blows, that surface area is being moved around, is going into the streets, going into the drains. I understand where they're actively building, that's one thing, but they're only building on probably 10% of the land, 15% of the land now. So the rest of it's barren and it's unprotected.
Yeah, we do have a section on the code that talks specific about construction. So the construction, they have to maintain everything on site. For example, the dust and the wind, all the material stored and neat in a place like that. So we have something in the building code for that.
Okay.
Not necessarily on the village code.
Okay, all right.
Well, and then I think, Jose, what you're talking about is that usually when they submit for permit, they typically would have to have a temporary erosion and sediment control plan within the civil set, usually, correct? And if the permit's active, even if they're not actively working on site, they still would be required to comply with that plan. And I think, I don't know about single family homes specifically, but I know, for a lot of developments and construction, they have to also comply with the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. So those are kind of 2 things. I mean, I guess would that apply as well if the permit was active, even if there was no construction on site?
Yes, that applies to the commercial and single family as well.
Okay.
All right, any other thoughts, any other comments? All right, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, that concludes the agenda. It's open for council for any other comments. Molly?
Nothing else to add tonight. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Have fun up there. Rick?
Nothing, thank you.
Patrick?
I got nothing.
And I have nothing either. Motion, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Molly.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Can I ask a quick question? When would that site plan be available for the residents? That's kind of on the distance, a few details.
You're talking about for Remembrance Park?
Remember.
I think
Should be on the.
I think it's on the website.
It's on the website.
I think so.
If you go to the
Isn't it on
Tequesta, like Google just Tequesta Council meeting agendas, click on the agenda and there's a hyperlink within the agenda for each agenda item. And that'll bring you to some version of the
And it
presentation.
has all the backup.
Yeah. It may not look exactly what you saw in the PowerPoint, but it'll have the site plan and everything.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
garden side.